The trial against Dominic Pelicot in France finished last week, and I think sentencing was on Friday. And I just wanted to talk a bit about this case because it's relevant in terms of how we as women can take care of ourselves and think about how we navigate or deal with risk and how we support our own health and well-being. Because it's been, I think, quite shocking for a lot of people to see the level of offending that this individual undertook, also in collaboration with others, where he was a loved, trusted, thought to be loyal and considerate husband and father, and he turned out to be a prolific offender, like one of the worst cases in French history. And it brings to light how women are in a position where they're more at risk of harm from the men who are close to them in their lives, and how I think for me there's something about how with domestic abuse cases or crimes, it's really also about a betrayal. Like it's about betrayal of trust. And I think that's what makes it such an awful crime. But that really can get watered down in the mainstream in terms of it becoming more about women making poor choices rather than this is supposed to be somebody that you love and that you wouldn't hurt or expose to harm in any way. And so I think that has become a real sort of revelation in a lot of ways in terms of how somebody could be trusted and that they would undertake this level of criminality. It also raises questions about how many other offenders like this there might be out there. Because the other key thing is that, unlike in many cases like this, it was that the police uncovered clear and irrefutable evidence, and they informed Gisele and her daughter Caroline that they were being harmed and abused by what they thought was a loving husband and father. That's unusual because it's normally the victim or survivor who would come forward and inform the police, and it's very often the burden of evidence and proof falls on the victim to demonstrate that they have had harm done to them. So the fact that this was a case where Caroline and Gisele were unaware, completely unaware of the harm and violence that they were subjected to until the police informed them. So it's also another layer of trauma where there is no indication of this. How can you really sort of protect yourself from it or be safe when you have no inkling that this is a risk that could be apparent to you? So I just want to kind of raise it, bring it up, add my voice to the conversation because it's important to think about how we can protect ourselves in these sorts of circumstances. And it's, a case like this, it's so awful that all you can think about is how Gisele, her daughter Caroline, the rest of their family would be able to recover from this. And you hope that they can recover from it. But, I just want to emphasise the point about how betrayal is really key in this sort of crime, betrayal of trust, but also how it's been kind of a revelation in terms of who the perpetrators, who the kind of co-conspirators were, and how they were from all sorts of different walks of life. How, it was a policeman and a nurse, a journalist, just men from different backgrounds. And, working in this area, I'm well aware of that. I'm well aware that offenders can be from any walk of life. And so it just brings it into context in terms of how men are behaving in general and in these circumstances, how it really kind of brings into sharp focus in other cases how very often it's put back onto the victim and their behaviours and things that they had done and things that they had said or messages that they had sent, rather than an emphasis or focus on the perpetrator behaviour. And in this case, that was completely removed, which makes it different. And I think it also makes it a milestone because there was no burden of evidence on the victim in the same way, that the crime was so awful. So I think it's helpful to consider how there may be other perpetrators working in this way, and how it's important. Really, this kind of comes back to women having a level of connection between each other, supporting one another, and being there for each other if and when we do go through some kind of trauma that is completely unforeseeable. And I think, Gisele and Caroline have shown such resilience and integrity. And the fact, the other key thing about it is the fact that Gisele waived her anonymity so that these perpetrators would be revealed and that people would know who they were for exactly this reason, that they were people that you wouldn't expect. So it's helpful to think about how we all stand with Gisele. I stand with Gisele. I recognise her daughter as a victim in all of this as well, and how difficult that must be. But I also have hope around how Gisele has shown such courage, and how there seems to be a bit more of an impetus around how women can support each other, but also how we can really stand up for ourselves and take courage from an icon like Gisele Pelicot, and think about how we can make stands in our own lives, even however small they might be, how we can think about how we can advocate for ourselves day to day, which comes back to how our boundaries might be impacted, or how somebody or a situation might make us feel. So I think it's important we can reflect on that in terms of our own power and what we can do for ourselves. So if you're interested in what I've been talking about, or you'd like to add comments, feel free, drop a like and follow for more content.